everybody. It's Georgia Rose. Here I am in the Strong Island Studios in beautiful Massapequa, New York. Thank you for tuning in. I am here every Monday night at 7 p.m. I've been doing this for a long time now. I don't know. I think this is my 52nd show, fourth season. But welcome. If for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, I am an astrologer and a psychic, and all kinds of things happen here in the soul space every Monday at 7. If you missed the live show ever and you want to see the show, you can go on any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, even Alexa. If you say to Amazon Alexa, hey, play Georgia Rose in the Soul Space, you will hear me. So welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about Mercury Retrograde in Sagittarius. And we are also going to, maybe if we have time, pull some cards. I'm going to go through Mercury Retrograde of what it really means, especially in Sagittarius. And then I'm going to go through each house of the chart of where it falls for all of you. So welcome. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to share the show. And if you would do the same, if you're so inclined and you like our content, you can share the show. We're looking to build our subscribership. There we go. Just going to share that to a few places. And yeah, let me see who's on. I'm going to go to the comments in a minute. So it's been quite a week. I have to say, I felt this Mercury retrograde way before it actually happened. Because as you know, when a planet is going retrograde, it has a shadow period sometime before, and then it goes retrograde. This Mercury retrograde is actually until December 15th, I think. I'll check that before the end of the show. It's going to be quite interesting because we just had Pluto go into Aquarius, which has a lot to do with this. So I'll get right on that. Just sharing one more place. All right. So here in the soul space every week, we talk about spirituality. We talk a lot about astrology because I am an evolutionary astrologer. But we also sometimes just talk about spiritual wisdom. We have guests sometimes, psychics, mediums, people who are just very inspirational with their life and what they've got done. And so it's really always a fun time. So let me see who's actually on. I'm going to keep switching back and forth tonight between Facebook and YouTube because we started to really promote the show in the YouTube space, and we want to make sure that you guys can find us there as well. So if you have anything that you want to do, you can call into the show live. We'll put the number on the screen in a few minutes, or you can comment, whatever you guys want to do, whatever floats your boat, whatever you feel comfortable doing. That's what happens in the soul space. So I'm going to jump into some Mercury retrograde stuff. So today I really felt Mercury retrograde, and I don't usually feel Mercury retrograde so much because I was born with Mercury in retrograde. So being born with Mercury in retrograde, if you have that in your chart, a lot of times Mercury retrograde doesn't affect an individual as much as it does someone who doesn't have Mercury retrograde in their natal chart. So I have Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, and I am a Sagittarius rising. So Sagittarius is the place where Mercury is retrograde and will be until December 15th. So the first thing we got to talk about when we talk about Mercury being retrograde is, what does Mercury retrograde usually mean and signify? Well, a lot of times it gets a bad rap. And I actually have a YouTube video I did quite a while ago on my channel Zenkuda about Mercury retrograde and what it usually means and why it's gotten a bad rap. And one of the reasons that it has is because people think things get glitchy, and it does. Because what Mercury retrograde energy is really all about is us slowing down. So a lot of times the universe will make things happen, so we have to slow down and become a little more introspective and maybe respect time more or respect details more. Typically speaking, you'll hear a lot of people say, don't have surgery, or especially cosmetic surgery, or don't buy a new car or sign paperwork or anything during a Mercury retrograde. But that's not always true. What Mercury retrograde really wants us to do is just slow down and look at the fine print. If we have to sign a contract for something, or we have to buy a big ticket item or have surgery, it might not be the most optimum time because it's a time when things get overlooked. But if we can really pay attention to the details, most of the time we can have smooth sailing even with a Mercury retrograde. For example, computer glitches and things like that, you want to always back up your stuff. Mercury retrograde will teach you that you have to be more respectful of data and that you'll do that. So it's kind of an interesting take on the energy when you think about maybe back to a time Mercury was in retrograde and something a little bit catastrophic may have happened to you, and it really made you stop and think. And so you'll never make that mistake again. Typically speaking, we have a lot of people who are traveling for the holidays during this Mercury retrograde the next few days. And typically speaking, you're going to have longer lines at airports. There'll be delays. Things will be glitchy. The weather might, not cooperate. Things like that. Maybe the computer will go down or something minor will happen on the plane. It's because you got to check it twice, right? No one just runs out of the house with their luggage and jumps on a plane. You've got to check your schedule. You got to call the airport. You got to make sure you check your list twice, right? So that's the moral of a Mercury retrograde. Then you have the energy of Sagittarius, where Mercury is retrograding right now. So anytime Mercury retrogrades, it retrogrades in a certain zodiac sign, a certain place in the zodiac. It's doing that in the sign of Sagittarius. So every zodiac sign has an archetype or attributes or almost like a personality to it, to the energy. So with Sagittarius, that happens to be truth and honesty. And Sagittarius energy is a broader perspective on things. It's higher learning. It is, Sagittarius is an energy, I always think of it as someone who paints with a very broad brush, right? A Sagittarius will do the outline of a beautiful painting and then maybe not always get around to filling in the space. Sagittarius is an energy that's very extroverted. It's exuberant. It loves to be around people and be in life and have a good time. And that's because Sagittarius is our truth. It's our personal truth. It's our honesty. It's what we're honest about. But it's also our belief systems. Sagittarius is seeking the truth in our own lives. Wherever Sagittarius is in your chart, whatever house, that's where you're really going to be a bugger for honesty. That's where you're really going to want to get down to the nitty gritty of what is true and what is not. So for the next little while, I would say between now and the close of 2024, we're all going to really be working on themes of honesty and what's true to us. Not just honesty in the sense of, is someone telling me the truth, but more deeper than that. This is a Mercury retrograde that brings in an energy of what is truth to me? What have I been told or conditioned or led to believe that maybe isn't really my authentic truth? And these things are going to start to come out in a very, very deep ways for us in the next few weeks. Now, I know that sounds really deep, but there's a reason for that. Pluto just changed signs and it's going to be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So whenever Pluto, which is a very deep transformative planet, Pluto is the planet that encourages us to have deep psychological transformation. And it just went into a sign where it's going to stay for 20 years after being in a sign, Capricorn, for 15 years. That's a big energy. That's a big egress. It's a big energy of innovation, energy of change and new perception. So now we have this Mercury retrograde in a sign that's all about truth and honesty. Well, one of the biggest players in the zodiac, Pluto, just went into an energy of innovation, new perspective, seeing things in a different way. So can you see how those two energies are really going to work to compel us to find our own personal truth? And this is going to come out in some really interesting ways. First of all, Mercury in Sagittarius is opposing Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter is the planet that likes to expand things. In Gemini, it's not exactly happy because Gemini is a very paradoxical and multiplicity type of energy. And Jupiter likes things to be straight. It wants to have honesty and truth and expand that. So it's not exactly happy in Gemini. And Sagittarius and Mercury isn't exactly happy in Sagittarius because Mercury is our thinking and Sagittarius is very much philosophical. And that's okay, except that Sagittarian energy is an energy of emotion and exuberance, and Mercury is really the way we think. So these two planets are working in opposition, and it's causing tension in our lives. What is that tension? Well, simply put, the tension is what is truth and what is not. Where are the things that I've been living with that actually are disempowering me instead of empowering me? Because they're the truths that they're the lies that I tell myself. What do I need to start to get really honest about in a really big way? And where are the places in my life where I'm kidding myself? I'm not really being truthful. And those are the places we're probably going to get a little bit of dose of reality check during this Sagittarius Mercury retrograde. Um, what are the things that you keep comfortable, right? Maybe you're staying in a relationship too long or staying in a job too long. Where are the places in your life that are stagnant, that are really not moving forward? But you're telling yourself that's okay. Well, I don't know any soul that thinks it's okay to just stagnate. Let's face it, we were all born and incarnated in this life to evolve and grow beyond stagnation, grow beyond procrastination, grow beyond the sameness that keeps us stuck. So you're going to see a lot of changes occur in the next several weeks, and you're going to see a lot of them happen in people's personal life, and you're going to see people finally do things or start to make change and make strides with things that they've been talking about doing for a really long time. What's truth? What's a lie? What do I need to stop telling myself so that I can finally move forward in my life? And so sometimes, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about what I see a lot going on around me. It's something that I've dealt with several years ago, and I don't really have in my life too much anymore, but it can come up. But I see a lot of people in this syndrome right now. And that's being in relationship with things that disempower us. Those are our attachments, right? We're attached to things and we're attached to people that we are comfortable with. We think that they are our security or they bring us security, when in actuality they disempower us. You know, the menial job that maybe we've really outgrown, but we stay in because we're afraid to change, right? And we're really not making enough money, but that's okay. I'm happy there. They know me. I know them. I feel good. You know, it's a place I can do it. I can go there. It's not challenging. It's good. Those are the things you're going to think about. The relationship that you stay in because it's comfortable. You know, oh, you know, maybe he cooks me dinner, but maybe he doesn't fulfill you emotionally, you know, or is there something the other way around? And you keep telling yourself it's okay. You're lucky to have what you have. That's going to start to come to the surface now. Or maybe it's something within yourself. You know, maybe it's a health issue. Maybe you're telling yourself, okay, well, I really need to lose that 20 pounds, but, you know, it's not that bad. I don't look that bad. It's okay. But that 20 pounds is maybe keeping you stuck from doing other things in your life, or you feel self-conscious and it's disempowering you with your confidence. So there could be any examples like that. It'll depend on where this is falling in your chart. I'm going to go through it house by house. But this is what's going to happen during this Mercury retrograde. This is a Mercury retrograde where you're going to want to break out into new territory. But at the same time, that takes a lot of courage and a lot of valor. I always like to use the word valor because it's something that comes into your awareness and you know you have to do it, but can you do it? Do you do it? Do we have the oomph to do it, right? That's where we all get stuck. It's like, oh, I don't really want to do that. This is about a leap of faith. This is about really going into a place, and I've been actually working on this personally in my own life in like a very deep way these last couple of weeks, going into a place where you really trust the universe and you really trust yourself to be supported and loved by the universe. And you don't think in terms of, oh, if I do this, it's going to be really bad. If I do this, I'm not going to be able to function or survive, or I won't have XYZ. It'll be horrible. No, it's going to a place of positivity where you can actually see the horizon and know what's there, and that the world, the universe, creator wants what's best for you, and you're believing in that. And that's a really, really big place to have a new perspective in, and that's a really hard place to go. You would think it would be easy for us humans to go there, right? Because it sounds so great, but we're scared of it. We don't trust it. You know, we're born with that. And so that's what a lot of this energy now is. Pluto going into Aquarius. This Mercury retrograde is kind of like stirring the soup of Pluto going into Aquarius. And so it's going to be, you know, can I trust the universe and leap off the cliff? It's like the card in the tarot that is the Fool card. And that'll probably now come up in 20 readings later tonight. So I'm going to go through a couple of my notes because I really want to make sure that you're all clear on this Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is our minds. It's where we gather info in order to form our perspectives, in order to form our opinions and our mental judgments also. Mercury is the place in the zodiac. The energy of Mercury is um, it's where we pick up energy that we want. But during a Mercury retrograde, that idea of picking up energy like that radio antenna, Mercury in retrograde is an oversaturation of that. We're overwhelmed. We feel like it's too much information. We're a little confused. Um, it's an oversaturation because Mercury comes in and will oversaturate energy. Like you're at the airport and all of a sudden the line is just overly long and it's overwhelming, or you have the minor fender bender and the person that you hit is like all agitated. And it's that overwhelm that we feel because the moral of the Mercury retrograde is stop, what's really happening here? I need to understand the situation. It's that perspective of going into introspection. So we want to gather information during a Mercury retrograde in order to review, rethink. Now, the way Mercury retrogrades happen, and not a lot of astrologers talk about this particular aspect, but the way the Mercury retrograde happens is this one is in Sagittarius. So we had a Mercury retrograde 4 months ago. Something that was occurring during that prior Mercury retrograde 4 months ago, and usually Mercury retrogrades happen about every 4 months. So something that happened during that Mercury retrograde 4 months ago is now going to come back around. That's how Mercury retrogrades work. So think about what was going on in your life 4 months ago. That was what, we're in November. So that was October, September, around July, August, right? Around July, August, what was happening in your life that now may repeat or may is unresolved. But what happens with this Mercury retrograde, the Mercury retrograde we're currently in will always take information from the prior Mercury retrograde and repeat it. However, it brings in new information. Remember, Mercury is the gathering of the data. It's the way we think. It's our mental capacity. It's how we form opinion and reason and solve things. So the Mercury retrograde that's current will bring in something from the past Mercury retrograde, but give you new information that changes your perspective in order to problem solve and bring you deeper insights and deeper understanding. So think about the 4 months prior and do that with every Mercury retrograde that happens. Say, well, what was going on 4 months or 3 months prior? Look up the date of the last Mercury retrograde. So they're bringing to recycle for renewal. All right. So a lot of times people will ask me, well, if a relationship comes back in and it comes back around during a Mercury retrograde, like, does that mean they're the one? Not necessarily. Sometimes a relationship recycles because Mercury retrograde wants you to understand and see the detriment or see where you're at fault or see what you need to change in your life so that you don't repeat it again and again and again and again. Sometimes it will come in order for you to have clearance or reconciliation, either that the relationship works or that you're finally over it and you're not holding that torch. So either way, the energy recycles for you to review with new information that brings you deeper understanding. So now, as I said, this Mercury retrograde, Mercury is opposite Jupiter. So that creates a tension. And what it creates a tension of is that Pluto in Aquarius and Saturn going direct in Pisces has an energy to it that's basically a frequency change. So Pluto goes into Aquarius. Now, Pluto was in Capricorn for 15 years since 2008. It changed November 19th into Aquarius. It'll stay in Aquarius now 20 years. When Pluto was in Capricorn, we all had a certain energy. We all had a certain, capacity that we were working in with Pluto under that influence in that frequency. Mostly it was crumbling structure. It was because the energy of Pluto always transforms things. Pluto is deep psychological transformation. It's something has to die to be reborn. In Capricorn, that was a very heavy, dense earth energy. We saw a lot of structures, government, schools, financial markets, right, in 2008 collapse in order to bring newness to them. In Aquarius now, that's an air sign, so the energy really changes. So it stands to reason then that anything that we were aligned with during those Pluto and Capricorn years is going to shift. We have a new frequency now. We are aligning with a new vibration with Pluto in Aquarius. So the things that really worked for us during those years from 2008 to 2024 probably aren't going to work so much for us anymore. That's a huge shift. So because that shift is happening now, what happens is the things that are old, the things that we've basically outgrown, the things that we loved, liked, and were comfortable with for the last 15 years ain't going to cut it. So, this particular Mercury retrograde being in Sagittarius and all about our belief systems, the truth, being honest with ourselves, it's going to bring a whole shift of newness and new frequency. It's almost like, did you ever have a friendship, like if you think back to like junior high, right? And you had a couple of friends or you had a few friends, and now, especially in junior high, everyone starts to grow differently, right? The friends you had in like sixth and seventh grade, by the time you get to like high school senior, more than likely, they're not the same friend group. Same thing with, when you're in college, you have friends, and maybe some of those friends stay with you for your life, but it's going to be the ones you have commonality with, the ones you get married the same time frame, you have babies the same time frame, maybe you have the same career changes, you retire around the same time. We vibe with people in our vibe. It's the same thing with the zodiac. Wherever the planets are vibing, that's where we're going to shift. So we're undergoing a huge shift right now. So this is a new pattern, and the new pattern is basically not easy. Because with all this planetary shift, now what's going to be is, as I started out in the beginning of the show and said, what empowers me and what doesn't. And sometimes it's very little things. Maybe this is an energy where you're going to all of a sudden have this amazing awareness that eating that candy bar every day at 3 o'clock is probably the worst thing you could ever do. And all of a sudden you're just going to wake up and be like, nope, not eating that candy bar anymore. Just don't want. I'm done with that. That's typical Pluto in Aquarius. It's ruled by Uranus. It happens on a dime. Happens on a dime. But yet it's going to be difficult because a lot of those things are comfort. So the relationship, the job, we're comfortable. So now the question becomes, do we need this to survive? The idea of your survival is going to change. The idea of what I really require to be happy is going to change. The idea of who I really want in my daily life is going to change. The idea of who do I really need to be around, like who really fulfills me and who really touches my soul. What do I really need, and what have I completely and totally outgrown? And now where do I need to go from there? And that's really what this is all about. It's new patterns that show us what we need to survive in a new energy. Because what we needed to survive in the old energy is gone. That energy isn't there anymore. We're not functioning, surviving, and vibing in it. So now we need to have a whole new set of things. So with Saturn going direct, it's also very much time. Saturn is the lord of time and the lord of karma. And when Saturn goes direct, because it was retrograde for a long time, and now it's sailing through the zodiac, going faster. Saturn, you're probably feeling time hops. Like, I know for me, sometimes things are flowing really well, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe how efficient this is. I just feel like time is just different. Or the opposite, where you're like, I can't believe it's only 6 o'clock. I thought it was like 9 o'clock at night. And that's not just because of daylight savings where we are. It's because Saturn is playing with time a little bit for us. And the reason for that is because as Pluto goes into Aquarius, and I've talked about it on other shows, we'll talk about it again before the new year. In 2025, 26, the planets all shift drastically into new signs. Huge frequency changes coming for the planet. But what happens is with Saturn, it's the past versus the future. It's past versus future. So on the one hand, we're like, there's this thing from my past, a personal relationship, a habit that's really comforting. I really like it. It feels good. It's part of my past. It's wonderful. It's like history, and it's traditional, and it's solid, and I can, hang my hat on it. But it doesn't feel the same because it's competing with the future now. Because Pluto in Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, is all futuristic energy. It's innovation. And remember last week on the show, I talked about that in length. You can go back to that video. Pluto is all about innovation, and innovation has two sides. On the one hand, innovation is wonderful and futuristic, and we're excited and ambitious and optimistic. But on the other side, it's scary because it means we got to let go of something that we believe is the truth and that always was, right? As I said on the show last week, NASA and the space, departments, the space agencies, they're the ones who go to the moon and go do things. But wait a second, Elon Musk is doing that now. Innovation, but kind of weird, right? Like, they're not supposed to do that. So you see, just like Bitcoin, right? Well, what is it? I can't see it, touch it, and go to the dime store with it, dollar store with it now. I can't, buy a big gulp at 7-Eleven. I can't go buy a hamburger at McDonald's. Where is it? Oh, it's in my wallet, which is actually not my physical wallet. It's this thing on my phone. Innovation. Amazing. Look at all the money that's circulating from that. Commerce, mercantile, Mercury. But at the same time, it challenges us because, especially people who are in a little bit of an older bracket, save your pennies, right? It's physical. So innovation breeds fear because we have to let go of a truth. Something that we thought was true and the way that things were, our constructs and our conditioning gives way to innovation. So that's where Saturn comes in, going direct in Pisces, and it's the very last degrees of Pisces, headed for Aries, where it's going to be on fire next year. So it's the past versus the future. It's where do you want to live? Do you want to live in the past or do you want to live in the future? Do you want to be really comfy in your nice, warm, cuddly slippers and never leave the house in a beautiful pair of high heels? Like what are you doing? Which is right for you? So this is the sensitivity is going to come. You're going to be sensitive to this now. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to feel like you need to make changes. And you should. We all should. I've been trying. Some things I'm not so successful at, some things I am. But the sensitivity is going to come. We're going to need to release certain things. And the reason why we need to release is because we have to honor the new. If we don't honor the new, we're going to be stuck and stagnated, and no one's happy there. Not for any length of time anyway. So this is really about the frequency changing and wanting us now to match our own personal truth with the frequency that we're seeing out in a big, wide new world. This is about deeper truths, our ideals. It's about, during the Pluto and Capricorn years, we worked really hard to let go of certain things and allow certain things to crumble so that we can build them new. And now this is the time for that. It's the time to embrace the newness. And all that hard work that we do, we want to look at it, not just look back on it and say, okay, yeah, we did that. It was good. No, we want to look at it and say, where can this bring me? Now, where can I enhance this? How much more can I do with my life? How can I have a life that is well used, not stagnated, right? Live full throttle, as they say. So the second thing that's happening with this Mercury retrograde, and I know I'm talking a lot about it because this is a very important place in our world right now. There's a T-square that's forming between Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter. And there's tension between those three planets. Saturn, which is, our hard work, our karma, our discipline, our lessons. Mercury, which is our minds and the way we think. And Jupiter, which is benevolence and expansive. But Jupiter will expand anything it touches, but it's about philosophy, especially in Sagittarius, squaring Mercury in Sagittarius. It's all about our philosophy and our beliefs. So we're going to need to examine what we believe, what we've been taught to believe, what's true for us, really go into your intuition, and our habits and our philosophies. Like, what are we really seeing that we need to bring towards the future, and what do we really need to let go of and let it be? It no longer works. There's going to be a blind spot there where for a little while we really can't see what it is that needs to be broken up. But we have to break something apart in order for it to be new. It's like, you take a big, huge block of ice out of the freezer, and it's a big block of ice, and you can't fit it in your glass, right? It's no use to you. What are you going to do with a big block of ice? So you got to chop it up. You got to break it apart. You got to decentralize it. And each one of those pieces that comes from that block of ice can go in a drink, can ice somebody's drink, or maybe even, put it on a boo-boo, or, use it to cool something down. And that big block, it does not everyone good. But when it's decentralized and broken up, it can be utilized in so many new and innovative ways. So what do you need to break up in your life in order to bring it to new areas? What needs to be decentralized? Um, so slow down, review, come into the awareness of what is disempowering you and what you need to break apart and bring the treasure to the new way. And then all of this, once we start to really create the space for things to now develop new and the innovation in our own lives to come and our own truth and our own honesty, we're all so hooked into lies. We're all so into illusions, and we're all so into even telling ourselves stuff we want to hear. There's 50 million different news programs on that all are cater to whoever's opinion it is. There's no more like, everyone gets a fair time, equal time. No, now there's just networks that just cater to what you think. So how is that good for anybody? Isn't it we need to all share different perspectives and different point of views in order to really develop our mind and not stagnate? So maybe that's what you need to look at, is that you're surrounding yourself with everyone who dresses and thinks and does the same things that you do. And maybe you need to branch out of that. That's very Aquarian also, Pluto and Aquarius. So break out, find new territory, grow. This is an energy that wants us to grow, but it's deeply psychologically transformational. So you're going to be growing in deep ways with these energies. And then you're going to find the awareness, take the leap of faith. What do I need to be in no longer? All right. And I've broken a lot of things in my life just in the last few days and said, no, I'm not doing that. Do, 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 do. Although I didn't say it that nicely, but it was okay. I got through it. Um, so take your leap of faith. And what do you need to just say? No, no longer. Because December 1st, we have a new moon in Sagittarius. And that's when we all have a beautiful time. We'll do a ritual, do something. I'll give you guys a couple of tips. That December 1st, new moon in Sagittarius, is when all this energy really comes in a beautiful way, and we'll get to see the truth, and you'll see the path, and you'll see the direction. It's like the GPS finally goes on in the car. We're like, oh, wait a second. Now I know what I really need to get rid of, and I know where I need to go with this. So let me see if I can see my comments. I was having trouble getting them up before. Where are my comments? Let's see who's on tonight. No, I can't get my comments up. Ugh. I hate when this happens. No. All right. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. Let me just change screens. Okay. You can also call into the show. I know Bobby had that number on the screen a little while ago. I have Aaron on, a couple of other people. I can see that. Why can't I see comments? Can't see comments. I'm sorry, guys. Bobby, I can't see any comments, so I don't know. It's just not working for me. All right. Oh, well, sorry, guys. I can't talk to you tonight. Oh, here we are. Okay. Um, Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing the show. I got Cheryl on. I got John on. Danine's on. Hey. Yes, it has been a crazy week. Oh, Doreen says she's been brutally honest, particularly last Friday. Well, that makes sense. Last Friday, there was some things going on with the Zodiac, but I've been brutally honest too. I actually said something the other day, kind of like absent-mindedly, and it offended somebody, and I was so upset because I didn't really mean it that way. But that's the kind of energy. Mercury in retrograde. Also, guys, always watch your speech because people misunderstand and things get misunderstood. Hey, Sarah, how are you doing? Oh, Danine's an Aquarius, so Pluto's going to be in your sign now, Danine. So you are definitely going to have some rocking and rolling these next few years. And then Cheryl says, life is finally good again for Cheryl. That's good. I know you had a couple of things, but see, Cheryl, you are a perfect example because I know you got rid of things that were disempowering you. So I'm going to go through really quickly for everybody where this will be happening in your chart. So now you can get a free chart. Either go to astro.com or you can go on cafeastrology.com. You punch in your birth numbers and then you can, get your chart. So when you look at your chart, wherever your rising sign is, that's going to be when you look at the chart, the very first part of the chart, the first, like where you would start, the first house, that's your rising sign. And that's what you want to look at when you look online, especially if you're reading your horoscopes online, which I don't usually recommend that. But if you are, you're going to look at the rising sign. So Mercury, as I said, is opposite Jupiter throughout this retrograde. And with Jupiter opposite Mercury, they're what we call in a mutual reception because Jupiter is actually in the home sign of Mercury and Mercury's in the home sign of Jupiter. It's like they reversed in the zodiac. And that's why we are going to feel a lot of tension with this Mercury retrograde. Um, so I'm going to start with Pisces. Okay, we'll do it backwards. So Pisces, if you are a Pisces rising or a Pisces sun, this probably is going to be happening for you in your 10th house. So the 10th house of the zodiac is career and the way the world sees you, your external life. It's also 10th house in the zodiac for Pisces. This is where your Mercury retrograde is going to happen in Sagittarius for you. That is the area where we are attached to the externals in our life of the way people see us by our conditioning, by family of origin, by, could be things that your belief systems as far as your culture, your schooling, things like that. So with this, you're going to want to kind of jump around a little bit at work. This is an area where you're going to be reworking. Don't forget, Mercury retrograde is all about revision, reworking, reflection. And this can be a delay or a setback for you in your career house. It doesn't have to be. I would say it probably will not be if when you're working and you're at work and things that are going on at work, if you pay a lot of attention because things can sneak up on you during a Mercury retrograde. So for my Pisces people out there, there'll be shifts in your workplace. If it's something that's controversial, try not to weigh in on it. Just kind of take a back seat, let it ride until after December 15th. It could also be how you do your work, what work you're doing, the environment that you work in. This could also be things like you want to shift in vocation, like you're not really happy with the kind of work you're doing, so you want to shift it into something more meaningful for you. That could also happen. But just look for changes in your career house and, where you're working, things you're working. If you're looking for a job during a Mercury retrograde, that could be delayed, but it could end up with you getting the job you really want, or a job that you went on 4 months ago will now come in. So this is really about work for you. If you're an Aquarius rising, this is happening in your 11th house. This is friends, community groups, allies, organizations. This is things that are going to change, reflect on the organizations that you're in. Is it really places you want to be? Are they empowering for you, or are they disempowering? Aquarius, for you, especially with this happening in your 11th house, Aquarius rising, you want to really look at your groups and communities and really make sure that not only are they in line with your belief systems and really what's honest to you, but you also want to make sure that the people that are surrounding you aren't mocking or making fun of your belief systems, that you really can be who you are and authentic there. That's going to be a really big deal. This is more of an unconscious type transit for you. This is also can be messages. With this happening in your 11th house, it's going to be, you're going to have an awareness of the people around you, and you're going to start to see some real subtleties that may make you change your perspective on a few things having to do with groups and people. It could also bring in new communities, or something that you were doing 4 months ago or 3 months ago. Now it comes back around and it ends up working in your favor. And for Capricorn risings, this takes place in your 12th house. The 12th house is more of a subconscious house. It's really like a soulful house. Whenever we have transits to our 12th house in the zodiac, it brings about deep psychological transformation and meaning. I would watch for synchronicity. Also watch for messages, like almost like intuitive or psychic messages. You may feel highly psychic during this time in regards to getting messages about your philosophies, belief systems, and what's true to you. The dynamics in your life can change as far as relationships, especially with yourself, like within yourself. like you really start to see truth, and you start to see um, how people are being truthful with you or not. And the illusions really get dispelled in this energy. Um, there's a time to also look at what's hidden for yourself. Like, what is your hidden belief systems that you don't really talk about, that no one knows you really believe? It might be time to, bring those to the surface or make yourself a little more authentic. It's a great opportunity to review that and really look at what is those subtleties that are influencing your behaviors, disempowering you and empowering you, and make sure you're bringing the things that empower you to the forefront. This Mercury retrograde will bring those to a head for you. Sagittarius rising, that's me. This is happening in your first house. So this is a time of self-reflection, particularly regarding behaviors, attitudes, and health. And not just your physical health, but your mental health. When Mercury is retrograde in our signs, especially if you're a Sag and it's happening in Sag now, this is going to be all of a sudden you realize the toll certain things take on you mentally in your mental health, because it's about belief systems, and it's about ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius. It's all about bringing good things into your life. So when this Mercury retrograde comes in, you're probably going to be doing a personal review and really looking at what's healthy, what is your concept of health, and how do you communicate about health? What are the things that you like to listen to or read about, or people you talk to? Is there someone in your life you can communicate? If you need to be healthier, who's going to help you do that? If you're a Scorpio rising, this falls in your second house, which is all about your value systems, your wealth, your money. It could literally mean that, and you may see a setback in finances, or you may see a glitch in finances that you become aware of, and you save something so that you don't end up with that shortfall. When Mercury is retrograde in your second house, Scorpio rising, this is a time when you don't want to spend a lot of money. You don't want to be it being too much of a good thing. Don't buy too much. Don't spend too much. Don't be trying, play too much abundance. Don't gamble, that kind of thing. But it's also business decisions, revisiting those. But it's also very much about your survival. It's going to be, things are going to come to a head, especially in business or to do with money, where you think, oh my gosh, I can't live without this. This is like really my stability, my security. And Mercury retrograde sometimes will shake those things up in order for you to realize that your stability is really from within and within your own resources, not the externals. So, keep an eye on that. So definitely take stock, review your finances. If you are someone who needs to pay your taxes quarterly, things like that, look and make sure you've done that. Make sure that you also are not someone who is getting cyber attacked, where, somebody's identity theft, things like that. Make sure anything to do with your valuables and finances are really protected. All right. And also anything that's outdated, make sure that you're updating everything. And that's also to do with your relationships and people and environments. So, okay, so Libra rising, this is happening in your third house. So Libra rising, for this to be in your third house, it's all about communication. Really, really watch your words. Make sure that you are really being precise in the things you say, because you will be misunderstood in this energy. Librans are often misunderstood because of issues with balance there, which we'll go into another topic. But if you're a Libra rising, you want to really make sure you're speaking clearly, checking the email twice. It's the type of energy where you may want to send a derogatory email to one person about somebody, and all of a sudden you hit send to the whole company. That can happen. It's your daily environment as far as what can be toxic and stressful. Really watch that in this environment, in this aspect, Libra rising. This also can be technology, communication, back up all your stuff if you're a Libra rising with this Mercury retrograde. Virgo rising, this is happening in your fourth house, which is all about home and family. So this can be, ancestral karma also. It can be issues that you've had with your family and loved ones repeatedly for a long time. It may be something that was going on 3 or 4 months ago that now comes to the surface. This is about, especially during the holidays, what do you need to rearrange in your home or rearrange with the people around you in your home in order to bring more love, expand peace, all that kind of stuff for you. So this is going to be all about home and family. And what are your beliefs and your ideology when it comes to your family and your loved ones? What is really authentic to you? maybe the culture that you grew up with or the religious background you grew up with isn't really yours. Maybe you think something different. If you're a Leo rising, this is going to happen in your fifth house. This is all about creativity and joy. A lot of times when we have a fifth house Mercury retrograde, Leo risings, this can be expressing yourself very passionately. So make sure, I always tell Leos this, that that the power of love is more, make sure that the power of love is more prominent in your life than the love of power, because with Mercury retrograde in your fifth house, Leo, this can really be a time when you misstep on that and you get to be a little more like the lion, the king of the jungle. You don't want to do that. You want to really make sure that you are looking at your expression in a creative way, not a, you know, uh, uh, lion way, not like someone who is, being an emperor on the throne. Like you're not laying down the law, that you are being more diplomatic than that and talking and speaking and communicating with love, that you're not being a tyrant. That's the word I was looking for. Next, Cancer rising. For you, this is going to be in your sixth house. That's your work and health and service every day. It's your daily life. So look at this Mercury retrograde as a time that's telling you to really look at the details, because you'll have a lot of glitches and a lot of redos, rewinds. Things will come in twos during your daily routines and daily life. You're going to find that things are very much a challenge. It's like you can't get out of your own way in this energy, but it's only temporary. It's a time to really assess where you put your energy, what's going to pay off in the long run. Don't get caught up and don't sweat the small stuff. For Gemini rising, this is happening in your seventh house, all about relationships. If there's any big decision or big discussion you have to have, Gemini rising, do not do it until after December 15th, because this is going to be all about differing beliefs and difference of opinions between you and your significant others. It's a period where you're really meant to find compromise, and the universe is going to challenge you to do that. If you're a Taurus rising, this Mercury retrograde is in your eighth house, which is karma. It's karmic debts, it's shared resources, and it's deep psychological transformation. So in this energy, you're going to see that things are going to be challenged with your fear and your anxiety and your attachments. And things will come along in order to bump them a little bit, so that you have to realize that your true attachment, your true stability is within, and not attached to all the externals and people and environment that you are so comfortable in, Taurus. But you know what? You're going to have to do some movement here, because I know Taurus like things to stay the same. It's not going to. And finally, for Aries rising, this is in your ninth house. This is all about higher learning, belief systems, teaching, and travel. Aries, if you are traveling during this holiday season, you really want to check everything twice, because with Mercury retrograde in your ninth house, it's all about that. So watch your travel glitches, and also meditation, astral travel, those kind of things are also going to come into play. This is a time when you want to rely on what you've already learned. The universe is going to teach you more, as long as you don't stagnate and move forward, my Aries. So that is all of the signs of the zodiac. I want to just take a moment to thank everyone for this past year, and all the support and wonderful feedback that I've gotten from all of my content on Facebook, YouTube, and in Instagram for Zencuda and the Zencuda community. Please have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving, and don't forget to be thankful for all the little things. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you here next Monday night at 7 o'clock in the Soul Space. And don't forget, you can catch the repeat on YouTube and also on all podcast platforms. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next week.